Revenge with Karen.
The message came through just as she turned the last page of her mystery novel, a twist ending she'd been waiting 480 pages for. But it wasn't the fictional villain who rattled her. It was the real one. Her phone buzzed, one final defiant pulse before Do Not Disturb kicked in, and there it was. A text from Owen, the CEO, the boy prince with venture capital wings and a god complex tattooed between his ego and his hairline. Enjoying the beach? Don't come back. No punctuation, no salutation, just the smarmy smirk of corporate cowardice distilled into 8 words. Mara stared at it, the sun catching the corner of her sunglasses as if nature itself was throwing shade. She didn't blink, didn't gasp, didn't do the thing most people would do, fire off a rage text or call to scream into the abyss. Instead, she slid the Kindle off her lap, stood up from the striped towel she'd been sitting on, walked calmly back to the little airbnb fridge for a lime seltzer. The waves were steady, patient, almost respectful. They didn't know they were about to bear witness to a soft-spoken act of war. Mara popped the tab, took one long sip, and opened her cloud drive. Paragraph 7, her private apocalypse clause. The one Owen forgot existed because he never read past bullet points or anything that didn't involve his own reflection. See, 4 years ago, before the app made headlines and before Owen started believing he was some kind of cross between Jobs and Jesus, Mara wrote the sync engine that made their tech work. Not the idea, not the logo, the engine. The code that kept your purchases, your notifications, your filters, your digital life, synced clean across devices like magic. And she didn't write it for them. She licensed it, under her own LLC. Exclusive, sure, but conditional. She was terminated without cause. The license reverted. No more sync, no more function. Just a $100 million app that suddenly couldn't remember what it did 5 seconds ago. She reread the clause, not because she needed to, but because ritual mattered. Like reading someone's will before lowering the casket. And just so you don't miss it, if you've made it this far, take a second to hit subscribe and like. Seriously, means more than you know and keeps the team caffeinated and scheming up more stories. Don't make us revoke your sync engine. Anyway, Mara closed the file. No need to call a lawyer, no need to draft a tweet. She uploaded a screenshot of the clause to a private folder, set it to viewable by anyone with link, and copied the URL. She didn't send it yet. No, that would be too fast. And Mara wasn't in a rush. She had sea air, fridge full of overpriced seltzer, and 4 more mystery novels stacked in her tote bag like loaded pistols. Back at HQ, they wouldn't feel it yet. Maybe a minor hiccup, a missed notification. A report delayed by 0.2 seconds. But within the hour, whole systems would crack like cheap patio furniture under a Midwestern hailstorm. She knew because she built it, and she knew exactly what would fail and in what order when it was revoked. Still sipping, she glanced at her phone again. No follow-up text, no call. Owen probably thought he was being clever or bold or decisive. Probably had some dumb slogan on a whiteboard like fail fast, pivot faster, and a new intern lined up to do Mara's job. She sat back down on her towel, opened a new book. The first line, everything that dies, first begins to rot from the center. The irony almost made her laugh. Her phone buzzed again, but this time wasn't a message. It was a system alert. An automated ping from the license server. Sync traffic had dropped by 60% in 12 minutes. She hadn't lifted a finger. The system had simply obeyed. The waves kept coming. And Mara turned the page. Paragraph 7 had always been her favorite. Not because it was elegant. Hell no, legalese reads like it was written by robots learning passive aggression. But because it was airtight. It wasn't written by a lawyer. It was rewritten by her, after the lawyers tried to gut it into useless fluff. They thought she was being difficult. She knew she was being prophetic. She read it again, eyes tracking each line like a technician watching pressure gauges before the boiler explodes. Upon termination of employment without cause, all rights to proprietary sync engine v2.1.9 revert to the original licensor, effective immediately, including but not limited to runtime access, updates, API endpoints, and telemetry nodes. It went on like that. A $1,000 sentence that cost Owen everything. She'd registered the engine under her LLC, quietly, legally, and before she ever signed on to the company. They needed a way to keep user data synchronized across platforms in real time, and nothing off the shelf was fast enough, stable enough, or secure enough. So she built it. Took 6 months of weekend coding, ramen dinners, no small amount of insomnia, but she made something elegant and impossible to replace. When she came on board, the company was desperate. The beta was hemorrhaging users. Syncing was their Achilles heel, and she was the only one offering Kevlar. She offered the engine, not sold, not donated, licensed. A smart move, she'd been told. Smart like a wolf who keeps one paw outside the trap. They'd laughed back then, the executives, especially Owen. "Oh, come on, Mara. Why so serious? We're a family," she didn't reply. Families stab each other too. She just made sure the knife had a safety lock and that she held the key. Now here they were. He'd triggered it himself. No pip, no performance review, not even a fake HR incident. Just a text message with the emotional maturity of a TikTok breakup. No cause, no warning, just a smug corporate pink slip disguised as vacation banter. Which meant license revoked. Immediately, she imagined the office, developers squinting at consoles, wondering why the sync demon was timing out. Project managers refreshing Jira boards. Customer service agents wondering why tickets just tripled in volume and half the users were yelling about reset loops and duplicate purchases. She didn't smile. Mara didn't do smug. But she did exhale, slow, even, like a sniper, lowering the rifle after the shots already landed. That clause, one no one read? It wasn't a landmine, it was a switch. And Owen had just flipped it with both hands, blindfolded. She double-checked the license portal. The automatic triggers were all green. Runtime access disabled. API keys revoked. Sync logs archived. She hadn't touched a thing manually. This was just protocol, her protocol. A ghost in the machine with the keys to the afterlife. In another window, she opened their public Slack channel, view only now, since her termination had revoked access. She saw the panic rising in digital screams. Sync is down. Anyone else seeing this? Payment confirmations not propagating. Owen, what the hell is going on? Is this a cyber attack? She sipped another lime seltzer. Cold, flat, just how she liked her revenge. The log showed the system had tried to fall back once, then twice, then gave up. The redundancy plan was never implemented. Why would it be? Mara was the redundancy plan, and she remembered arguing about that very thing in a meeting 6 months ago. Owen waved off her concerns. "Why waste dev time on backups when we've got you?" he said, like it was a compliment, like she was a feature instead of a human being. Now, the feature had walked. She flipped open her laptop, not to help, but to document. She drafted a simple note. License automatically reverted due to breach of contract paragraph 7. Further usage of proprietary engine is unauthorized and subject to legal action. She didn't send it yet. Not to the board, not to legal, not even to Owen. No, that part would come later. First, she had to wait. Let them sweat. Let them try to fix what wasn't theirs to touch. Let the spiral begin. She leaned back against the deck chair, laptop warm against her thighs, and watched as a seagull dive-bombed someone's fries. Even the damn birds knew how to scavenge better than Owen. This wasn't sabotage. This wasn't petty. This was physics. Push, recoil, collapse. All triggered by one clause no one bothered to read. The first real crash hit around 9:12 a.m. Eastern. Right as the New York office logged in and LA was still groggily pouring its first pour-over. The app, previously their crown jewel, their shiny $100M darling, began coughing up error codes like a cat horking up yarn. Devices wouldn't sync. Notifications duplicated. Purchases vaporized mid-transaction. Some poor bastard in Tallahassee paid 3 times for the same meditation audio and still didn't get the damn thing. The backend devs thought it was a version mismatch. Then a corrupt cache. Then a bad deploy. They pinged the on-call engineer, then the platform lead, then escalated to the director. Everyone said the same thing. It was working last night. By 9:34, the Slack channel titled #Fires had more than 400 messages. One brave soul finally asked the question, could this be Mara's license? Dead silence. Then another voice chimed in quietly, almost like they regretted it mid-keystroke. Wait, if she got fired without cause, doesn't the sync engine revert? Cue the internal stampede. Legal opened her contract, probably for the first time since it was signed. Paragraph 7 hit them like a crowbar to the temple. CTO forwarded it to Owen with nothing but the subject line, "You absolute idiot." In the meantime, Mara was on her balcony, laptop open, phone face down. She hadn't answered a single call. 6 missed ones from Owen. 4 from the CTO. 2 from some rando HR intern who once tried to convince her to do a TikTok dance for engagement. He didn't respond. She didn't explain. Instead, she opened her camera roll, found the high-res screenshot of paragraph 7 she'd taken the day she signed the deal, and uploaded it to Twitter, not on her main account. On a dusty old alt she used to follow archive bot feeds and linguistics memes. She didn't write a caption, didn't tag anyone, just paragraph 7 in all its boring glory, posted at exactly 10 o'clock a.m. Pacific. Within 30 minutes, dev from a rival company had already screen-capped it and posted. Someone at that company's about to have a bad day. Mara shut her laptop. Empowered silence wasn't just about not talking. It was about letting your absence scream louder than a press release. Back at HQ, Owen was white-knuckling the conference table in a Patagonia vest he wore to look approachable for investor calls. He kept yelling at the CTO, "Fix it. Fix IT." CTO looked like he aged 5 years in an hour. "We can't, Owen. She was the access. The engine's tied to her license. It's not just code, it's hers, legally." Owen pivoted to legal, who now had an entire team combing the clause line by line like priests exorcising a demon from an old Bible. "Can we sue?" "No," the general counsel said bluntly. "You breached. She warned you. And frankly, she drafted that clause better than we ever could have." Owen's jaw clicked audibly. Meanwhile, users were rioting in real time. The app's rating plummeted to 1.6 stars. Refund requests exploded. Influencers who had promoted the app were deleting their posts. Reddit threads titled "WTF happened to app" name hit the front page. Someone found the old promotional video featuring Mara, quiet, standing in the back, no name mentioned, and screen grabbed her face like it was the Zapruder film. Wait, was she the architect? Only one not talking during those weird CEO interviews? I thought she was a consultant. Bro, she's the entire reason the app worked. I heard she once rebuilt the backend over a single weekend after the CTO broke production. Mara sat in the shade, letting the wind mess with the pages of her book. She hadn't read a single word since the crash started, not because she was nervous, because she was watching the avalanche. The truth wasn't loud. It didn't need a mic, just needed friction. And Owen had supplied all the pressure. A fresh Slack screenshot leaked from inside the company, showing Owen finally typing into the general all-hands channel for the first time in months. "Hey team, quick update. We're looking into the issue. Please do not engage with outside press. Mara is not authorized to speak on behalf of the company." Someone added a reaction emoji, a clown face. 37 employees followed suit. Owen deleted the message. At 11:17 a.m., Mara's phone vibrated again. A text from the CFO this time. "We didn't know. Please, is there a way to fix this?" She stared at it, then typed a single-word reply. "No," but didn't send it, not yet. Let it sit there like a chess piece she hadn't touched yet, daring them to guess her next move. Let them wonder how deep the ghost in the machine really ran. By noon, #app crash had overtaken #Taylor Swift sightings and some crypto rug pull scandal on Twitter. That's how you knew it was real. Not just tech bubble real, everyone real. Suburban moms were tweeting about lost baby photos. Gym bros couldn't sync their macros. Some poor guy in Reno live-streamed himself crying because the app locked him out of a 10-day meditation streak and reset his progress to day 1. By 12:30, worst update ever was trending too, though there hadn't been an update. Just a silent revocation that felt to users like a digital lobotomy. Reddit threads exploded with titles like, "What the hell is happening with app name? Is this a hack? Did they fire the only person who knew how it worked?" And then someone posted a link to Mara's clause. No context, just a screenshot of the legal paragraph and the words, "This might explain everything," was upvoted 8,000 times in 20 minutes. The comments beneath were vicious. "Holy shit. The sync engine was hers. This is like if NASA fired the guy who knew where the moon was. Paragraph 7 gonna be tattooed on every engineer by morning." Meanwhile, inside the company, the spiral tightened like a noose. Owen tried to float the idea that it was a cyber attack. He even told PR to prep a potential breach statement. The legal team nearly fainted. "Not say that unless we want to get subpoenaed into oblivion," the general counsel snapped. "It's not a hack. You fired the license holder without cause. You unplugged your own engine." The CTO was pacing, whispering to a dev lead, "What if we tried to recreate it? I mean, how hard can it be?" One of the seniors, an actual adult in the room, sighed. "It took her 6 months. And she's the only one who's ever touched the core code. Rewriting it would take years." When asked the board to buy time, they gave him an emergency Zoom link instead. Mara, for her part, didn't care. Not in the way they wanted her to. She wasn't throwing darts at Owen's LinkedIn profile or rage-riding medium think pieces. She was curled up on the balcony in a hoodie that smelled faintly of eucalyptus detergent, watching a seagull attempt to steal a toddler's chicken nugget. Her phone buzzed with updates, mentions, DMs. She only looked when it made her curious. One journalist had messaged her, "Do you want a comment?" Another, more aggressive, "Did you plan this?" She smiled at the last one. Plan, she documented. This wasn't revenge. This was accounting. The natural result of mismanaged trust and fine print. They didn't ask what she wanted when they fired her. They assumed she had nothing to want, that she'd vanish like a plug-in or a plug. They didn't know was that Mara never raised her voice because she'd already written her scream into the architecture. The cold brew in her hand was sweating condensation. A little sweet, mostly bitter, kind of like vindication. She tilted her chair back and closed her eyes as the sunlight filtered through the umbrella above her. Back in the war room, Owen was trying to negotiate with the board like he was on Shark Tank. "Look, it's just a hiccup," he lied. "We can patch it." Building an alternative. One of the board members leaned in. "Your company is bleeding active users by the thousands. If this isn't fixed by tomorrow, we're looking at a mass refund campaign and maybe even litigation." Owen snapped. "She's just one person. We'll sue her." General counsel again, exasperated. "You'll lose. She owns it, and she has receipts." At 2:06 p.m., the CFO left the board meeting early. No explanation. Just took her bag and walked out. CTO followed 15 minutes later. By 3 o'clock, the dev team had stopped trying to fix the sync engine and instead began quietly removing Mara's name from old GitHub logs, an act that was both cowardly and hilarious. You can't delete fingerprints from the very walls of the building. One junior dev, in a moment of either courage or burnout, posted on the company Slack, "Y'all are blaming Mara for leaving the house while you lit it on fire." It was removed from the channel within the hour. Mara finally texted a single person, a friend at another startup, not tech bros, not unicorns, just a team of adults doing boring but stable API work. Her message was 3 words, "Still looking engineers?" They replied, "Always. You want in?" She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked back out at the ocean, where the horizon was straight, clean, and infinitely wide. There was something to be said for not being needed by people who never noticed you until you were gone. This wasn't sabotage. This was structural integrity returning to its rightful owner. The voicemails began in a trickle, like a leaky faucet you ignore until it floods the basement. First, the CTO. His voice was flat, too flat, like he was trying not to sound desperate while standing ankle-deep in flames. "Hey Mara, just wanted to touch base. No pressure, but if you're around, we'd really appreciate a quick consult on the sync outage. No hard feelings, obviously. Hope you're enjoying the beach." The irony almost deserved applause. Next came legal. A woman named Elise with a phone voice like chamomile and cyanide. She emailed, then called, then emailed again. "We'd love to discuss a temporary licensing reinstatement." "Of course, want to make sure you're properly compensated for your time." Mara rolled her eyes and deleted the draft response she'd written in her head. "You mean time like the 4,000 unpaid overtime hours I gave you while you were at happy hour eating truffle fries and calling me asset adjacent?" Then HR tried. Oh, sweet, clueless HR. They sent a templated email. "Hi Mara, hope you're well," smiling face with smiling eyes, just circling back to explore if you'd be interested in a contractor opportunity. Like she was a camp counselor who forgot her whistle, and not the structural steel beam holding up the whole damn building. But the piece de resistance, Owen, the man himself, finally knocked off his throne of VC-funded ego long enough to remember the name of the person who built the bones of his app. It came in as a voicemail, because of course it did. "Cowards don't face time. Mara, it's Owen. Look, I know things got weird. I didn't mean what I said, the text. It was a joke. You know how I am. This thing with the sync engine, it's serious, and I'm asking you as a teammate, as a friend. Can we talk?" She played it once, then again. On the third listen, she caught the way his voice trembled at the word serious. That little crack in the middle of a sentence built entirely from bluff. Mara wasn't mad, wasn't even insulted anymore. She was empty. Hollowed out by years of being called low visibility in performance reviews and not a culture fit when she skipped beer pong night to debug the billing module. But underneath that hollow, a diamond edge. She tapped out her reply, short, surgical, no emojis, no warmth. Consultation begins at $15K/HR. Minimum 6 hours, prepaid. She hit send, then muted the thread. Not blocked, not ignored, just muted, like you do to a dog that wouldn't stop barking at shadows. It took 8 minutes for Owen to respond. That's insane, be reasonable, she didn't reply. 6 minutes later, we don't have time to prove that. Legal's buried, still nothing from her. Then, I'll pay out of pocket, please. Just help me fix this before the board fires me. She read that one twice, then swiped it away like lint off a black hoodie. The thing is, Ara didn't need the money. Not anymore. She'd saved, invested, and lived below her means like every woman in tech who knew the glass ceiling had trapdoors. But the price wasn't for the work. It was for the disrespect. 15 grand an hour wasn't gouging. It was interest. Accrued over 4 years of late-night Slack messages, forgotten credits, and meetings where her ideas were echoed by louder men and applauded like new inventions. Somewhere deep in the company's Jira board, buried beneath red-tagged tasks and panic-induced updates, her old comment still lived on a ticket from 2 years ago. What happens if the license is revoked? We should plan for it. The reply from Owen, dated the same day, was a laughing emoji and the words, "Lol, like you'd ever leave." Back then, it had stung. Now, it felt like prophecy. She took a screenshot of the text thread, not to post. She wasn't that petty, but to save. Little souvenir. Like pressing a venomous spider between glass, just to remember what it looked like. Her phone buzzed again. A calendar invite. HR had the gall to schedule a reconnect call optional smiling face, with smiling eyes for the next morning. She declined it without comment. Then she leaned back in her chair and clicked open an email thread from someone much more interesting. A venture firm she'd once helped secure a patent audit for. Subject line read, "We'd love to discuss what you're building next." She hadn't responded yet, but she would. Once she finished her cold brew, once the voicemail stopped, once the dust settled over the empire built on silence and forgotten contracts. Because now Mara was listening, but only on her time, only on her rate, only on her terms. By the time golden hour lit up the shoreline like God's own filter, Mara was done sipping cold brew and reading Reddit threads that made her sound like a cross between Alan Turing and John Wick. The chaos she triggered, not caused, but triggered, was now its own wildfire. It didn't need fuel anymore, just oxygen. And Owen was hyperventilating enough for all of them. So she got to work. Not revenge work. Real work. Kind you do when you finally cleared the wreckage of someone else's empire from your boots and decide it's time to build your own. She started with a name, Alana, former lead designer. The only person who'd ever fought for UI/UX decisions when Owen wanted more pop and gamification, because some podcast told him dopamine was the new loyalty. Alana had left after they moved her under a junior with a TikTok following and a fake British accent. Ara texted her 2 words. "Still building?" Alana replied in under a minute always. "Tell me when." Next was Deepak, backend dev, lived in Detroit. Quiet, methodical, and the guy who once built a DevOps recovery pipeline in a single weekend while Owen was at a silent retreat in Ajay. He left after being told his role was automatable. Mara knew better. She pinged him. Then Marisol, QA lead. She hadn't just found bugs, she smelled them. Ported a 0-day vulnerability 6 months before the platform lead understood the phrase. Let go during a strategic pivot that somehow spared all the dudes who broke staging weekly. Each message was short, casual, like a reunion, and a proposal braided into a single sentence. And each one came back with the same vibe, tell us where to plug in. By the time the sun dipped, Mara had a skeleton crew. Not a startup team. A liberation squad. No egos, no pitch decks. Just the people who had always done the work, minus the ones who thought alignment meant having matching Patagonia vests. She leaned back and opened a blank document. The press statement. Not dramatic, not petty, not even defensive. Just the truth, written with the grace of someone who no longer needed permission to speak. The sync engine license held by Mara Lynn was revoked automatically upon breach of contract terms related to her termination without cause. No malicious action was taken. The protocol is protected under IP agreements dating back to 2019 and was properly registered under her LLC. We have no further comment at this time. Simple. Factual, sharp enough to cut through spin, but smooth enough not to leave fingerprints. She knew it would make the rounds. Journalists would hunt for drama, but there'd be no blood, just boundary lines and a distinct, measured lack of apology. That night, her inbox dinged with a message from an investigative tech reporter. One of the few she respected. Not a click chaser, someone who dug through lawsuits and funding decks like a surgeon through scar tissue. Subject line, off the record. Would you like to talk? She stared at it for a minute, then closed the laptop. Not because she didn't want to talk, but because she didn't need to, not yet. The story was already telling itself. Back in the company's PR bunker, Owen was panicking over a statement that said nothing. Legal wouldn't let him go on record. The board had already assigned an external crisis comms team. The internal Slack channels were crawling with NDAs and warnings not to speak to press. Too late, the court of public opinion had already handed down its verdict. And it wasn't based on who had the loudest voice. It was based on who still had the keys. Meanwhile, Mara was sketching out a system diagram. Not a full app, not yet. Just the skeleton of a modular sync protocol that could be licensed, if done right. One that didn't rely on VC ego or foosball tables or 17 layers of meaningless middle management. Something quiet, precise, scalable, something clean. She imagined Owen, still sweating in his branded hoodie, trying to explain to the board how the company's rock-solid infrastructure had collapsed like a sandcastle under a rising tide. All because he fired the person who built the sand. And while he paced and begged and blamed, Mara built. No spotlight, no hashtags, no glass-walled conference rooms with artisanal donuts. Just code and resolve, the kind of calm that doesn't come from winning, but from finally being left alone to do it right. She wasn't destroying his company. She was drafting the blueprint for something better. The video hit Twitter at 8:43 a.m. on a Tuesday, and within 10 minutes, it had more views than their last 3 ad campaigns combined. Grainy, vertical iPhone footage, clearly shot by someone pretending to cough while angling their phone just over the sleeve of a conference room blazer. But the audio, crystal, and the headline practically wrote itself. CEO of app name melts down in board meeting. She was a nobody. She was silent. In the footage, Owen's usually slick-back hair was a humid, chaotic mop. His face glowed red, not stage-ready, not filtered. Raw was pacing like a bad actor in a community theater production of King Lear, waving his arms as if volume might cancel out incompetence. She didn't even talk in meetings. He screamed, slamming his tablet on the table with a clatter that silenced the room. You want me to admit that she was the reason this thing worked? A ghost in a hoodie who couldn't even pitch a deck. The camera jostled slightly. You could hear someone trying not to laugh. I built this. Owen continued, finger stabbing toward the window like the skyline itself owed him loyalty. I got the funding. I made the calls. She was just code, replaceable, a voice calm and quiet off camera, and yet here we are, the clip cut off there. Perfectly. By noon, Mara's inbox was buckling. Recruiters, VCs, journalists, former coworkers. Even a guy who used to intern at the company and once spilled coffee on her keyboard wrote, I always knew it was you. We all did. Everyone else was just noise. A partner at a major venture firm wrote, if you're building anything, we'd like to talk. Name your terms. She ignored most of them, not out of arrogance but clarity. This was the aftermath, the echo chamber of people scrambling to align themselves with the person they underestimated yesterday. She didn't need applause. She needed quiet, room to think. Still, one email caught her eye. It was from Alana, recently re-enlisted design lead. Subject, guess who just texted me body? Owen, offering me double to come back. I said I'd only return if the board replaced him with a bag of wet rice. Thought you'd enjoy that. Mara chuckled once, short and low. The kind of laugh you let out when you see a typo on your own tombstone and decide to keep it for style. By that afternoon, screenshots from internal investor chats were leaking. Demands for an emergency vote, questions about breach of contract liability. One shareholder posted anonymously on a forum, we invested in the architecture. Turns out, the architect wasn't invited to the groundbreaking ceremony. That's not a founder problem, it's a leadership vacuum. Owen, reportedly, had gone off-grid, which in startup terms meant he was hiding in a co-working space in Venice Beach, pretending to journal while stress-refreshing Twitter. The board issued a statement, vague, sterile, already outdated by the time it dropped. We are committed to stabilizing our infrastructure and exploring all licensing options moving forward. Mara read it like you read the horoscope of someone you don't like. Half smirk, no belief. Then she went back to diagramming. By sunset, a meme started circulating. Mara's paragraph 7 screenshot, overlaid with Owen's meltdown face, captioned, I bet you wish you read the terms, bro. She didn't share it. He didn't like it, but she saved it. Not as a trophy, more like an X-ray of the infection they finally admitted was real. Alana messaged her again. They want a quote from you. The Verge, WSJ, Fast Co., all of them. Mara wrote back, let the silence speak. Because that's the thing Owen never got. The power wasn't in screaming or branding or PR gymnastics. It was in the vacuum. The engine gone cold. The silence where sync used to be. That silence was her voice. And now, finally, the world was hearing it. Mara never liked the word founder. It felt like a costume, something people wore to chase cameras, speak in metaphors about disruption, and pretend their sleep deprivation was genius. She'd seen too many founders crash real products into walls while they fiddled with their personal brand in the rearview mirror. So when the paperwork cleared and her new company went live, he didn't announce it with a LinkedIn post or a Medium essay. No heart emoji, no from failure to flight garbage. She just hit submit on the incorporation form, closed the tab, and made coffee. It wasn't a startup. No seed round, no launch party, no open plan office filled with beanbags and kombucha taps. It was lean, clean, built for utility, not optics. She didn't need 20 interns and a branding team. She needed 5 good people who knew what silence meant in a war room. The name was quiet, too. One word. No vowels dropped. No crypto-esque capitalization gimmicks. Just a small homage to her first line of production code from the original Sync engine, and in joke only she and maybe Deepak would catch. The core product? Sync, yes, but reimagined. Not just device to device. She started sketching out infrastructure that would allow modular licensing, living protocol, adaptive and compartmentalized. One that companies couldn't just plug in and forget, but had to respect. With logs, transparency, accountability, and explicit usage boundaries baked right into the architecture. Failed to treat it right, and it would self-expire, like digital cut wire. It wasn't a weapon. It was a contract with teeth. And when her old company's biggest competitor reached out, she didn't flinch. She took the meeting, not in some glass-walled skyscraper, but over a secure video call in a hoodie with a chipped mug of tea. The CTO on the other end didn't posture. He listened, really listened, asked smart questions. And when Mara outlined the terms, explicit, hard-coded licensing limits, high per seat cost, no backdoors, and clause protection for her team's IP, the man didn't blink. I'd rather pay full price for something that doesn't implode than save a buck and get sued mid-scale, said. The deal took 48 hours. No haggling, just mutual comprehension. And just like that, the engine lived again. New company, new logo, same bones. But this time, every endpoint ping, every update packet, every successful transaction whispered the truth. Mara built this. And she built it right. The day it went live, she didn't tweet, didn't post, didn't even tell Alana. She just refreshed the telemetry dashboard, watched the handshake data rise, allowed herself one breath of satisfaction. Somewhere in her inbox sat an auto-forwarded internal email from her old company, sent by someone still lurking in the trenches. FYI, they just lost another enterprise customer. Guess they switched to you. The email ended with a sentence that made her pause. I think he's finally leaving. Rumor is Owen's stepping down. She didn't reply. What was there to say? She wasn't coming back. There was no triumphant return, no vindictive throne to reclaim. She wasn't interested in being their replacement queen. Let them crown someone else. Let them rebuild what they burned. Mara had her own blueprint now, one that didn't depend on who liked her, noticed her, or remembered to invite her to the table. She was the table, and now she was building chairs for people who actually earned their seat. She added one last thing to the system architecture that night. Not code, single sentence in the licensing metadata. Silent systems run deepest. Then she shut the laptop, refilled her tea, and went to sleep. No alerts, no anxiety, no more pretending she didn't know her own worth. The engine thrummed quietly in the background of a dozen enterprise apps now. No one saw her name, no one needed to. The sync was perfect. The silence, even better. The call came at 6:11 p.m., just as Mara was finishing the last changes to a new permissions layer, something clean, recursive, elegant. It caught her off guard, mostly because she didn't recognize the number. Not the usual San Francisco prefix, not a recycled work line. It rang twice. Then a third time. Something in her gut told her not to let it go to voicemail. She answered, nothing at first, just breathing, hesitant, unsteady. Then the voice, familiar but worn out, cracked around the edges like drywall behind cheap wallpaper. Mara, Owen said, low and slow, I know I don't have a right to call. but I don't know who else to talk to. She didn't speak. I was wrong, he went on, voice trembling now. About everything. About you, about the code, about what mattered. A pause, he sniffed. Whether it was allergies, tears, or just ego deflating in real time, she couldn't say. She stared out her window, watching streetlights flicker on across the block like stars remembering their cue. You were right, he whispered. I thought I built something. But it was you built it, all of it, I just didn't see it. I wanted credit, I wanted noise. But it never ran right without you. She still didn't speak. Please, he said, voice breaking on the word like a shoe scuffing glass. Just tell me what to do, I'll do anything. License it, fix it, partner again. I'll make it right. Just help me. Mara didn't sigh, didn't flinch. She just closed her laptop with one hand, slow and measured, and let the silence stretch until it bent into truth. Then finally she spoke. That protocol was never yours, Owen, she said. Calm, no venom, just gravity. You used it, you profited from it, but it was never yours. Another silence. He didn't argue, but she added, you're welcome to use the public version. A spark of hope flickered in his breath. It's ready. And just like that, she ended the call. No gloating, no monologue, just reality, clean, absolute, and irreversible. She didn't need him to suffer, he already had, not because of her, but because of himself. The vacuum he felt wasn't punishment, it was consequence. The inevitable weight of taking something for granted until it vanished. Back at her desk, the dashboard pulsed with healthy sync reports from half a dozen companies, none of them his. New system was working beautifully. Stable, independent, built with care and integrity and guarded by a team who knew exactly what they had and who gave a damn. Mara sat back and let the quiet wash over her. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't launched a smear campaign, hadn't needed a public apology or a victory lap. She had built something no tantrum could break, no board vote could delete, not revenge, not justice, just distance. Uncrossable, unforgettable. She was no longer the ghost in their machine. She was the architect of her own. And this time, no one could revoke it.
And that's how it all played out. Funny how life can twist itself into knots and then somehow straighten out again.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening and being here.